What's up, friends? Hi. I'll give you guys a second. Still trying to find your seats. Could be worse. Could be like the movie theater where it's dark and you can't see your seat, and you're like looking at your ticket, looking at the rows, and the person behind you is mad because you're blocking their view of the movie. Still a couple left. I'm gonna drink some water. Hi, friends. So hey, I'm good. Actually, I'll be honest, I'm not good. Thursday, pretty much all day, I got like the stomach flu, or I had like a virus or foodborne illness, whatever they call it. So it was like this way and then that way. You know, it was pretty gross. But hey, I feel better today, and I did not want my sickness to rob me of spending time with you guys this weekend. So I'm excited to be here. So we're in a series called Gravity, and we're in week 3 of Gravity. And just so you guys are aware, if you're just joining us for the first time in this series is technically, it's about boundaries, with the understanding that certain behaviors will lead to certain results in our life. And I know some of you guys are thinking like, man, I hate boundaries. Boundaries stink. You guys who are not boundary fans, right? Some people are like, nah, man, I like stepping just outside the line if I can. That's kind of how I was when I was growing up, and I got in trouble for it all the time. However, we here at Shepherd Youth find this very important because we believe that God loves us all dearly and wants us to experience life the way that he has meant for it to be lived with him. And so that's why we're doing these things. Week 1 of Gravity, my buddy Sean O'Don, who I think is in the room somewhere, he talked about friends, right, and friendships. And he gave us like a list to write down of our best 5 friends. And some of you guys were mad because you're like looking over at your friend's list and you weren't on it. And you're like, man, whatever, right? And so, and then the thing that I took from his message that I liked was he said, show me your friends and I will show you your future, which I think is very, very true and very important in our life. And I actually had a really cool conversation over there after with someone who was wrestling with that idea of having a friend that was difficult for them. Last week, my friend Adriana Cervantes, who also gave you permission to call her Humble Scratch, which you would scratch like this, I think. It's like a dab and a scratch is the universal sign for that. She talked about what? You guys remember what she talked about last week? Anybody that was here? Anyone? What you watch and how it affects you. Perfect, right? The law of screens, right? And she talked about what we're fixing our gaze upon, what we're watching. And the takeaway that I got from there was what you watch will shape you. And I am living proof that I know how that works in my life. In the past, I've had issues where I get so wrapped up in, she like pulled out the apps and how much hours you're spending on things like that, right? And that was super important. Cool, and so this week, we're gonna continue through this Gravity series by looking at robots. Robots, any robot fans? Robots? I got like 4 of you. Come on, man, for real? Like, not a single robot? You ever thought, man, that'd be cool, like that robot's cool if I actually knew that robot in real life, right? So if you're a nerd, you should probably be very excited right now. But don't admit that you're a nerd because then you're just more of a nerd. Like, yeah, I'm excited. Hey, so what we're going to do is play a little game, and I'm going to have my homies in the back. They're going to play a little soundbite of a robot or AI, which is artificial intelligence, in a film, and you guys just throw it out there if you know who it is, right? So the first couple are going to be some throwbacks. So I'm looking at my man Dusty because we're like brothers from another mother, you know what I'm saying? Play that first one.
I'll be back.
All right, surprisingly, very well for you guys. Terminator, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Guy, get to the chopper. That guy. Cool. All right, number 2. Play number 2.
You called for backup?
Who said it? Dude, he said RoboCop. Bro. Can we just clap for that? Because I literally was like, not a single kid's going to get that one. All right, next one. That one is pretty simple. Pretty simple. That's Wall-E. One of my favorites. All right, next one. Here we go. Okay. I got people who said R2, and I have people who said, that's literally what she just did. R2-D2, next one.
Autobots, transform!
Optimus Prime, who's like one of my all-time favorites because he just destroys people and it's great. Next one.
I was alerted to the need for medical attention when you said, ow.
He's a robot that we can just have and hug, right? Baymax. All right, we got two more. Next one. Star Wars, yes, but BB-8 is the newer droid, which he's cool because he's round like a ball. Cool. Last one.
I have run simulations on every known element, and none can serve as a viable replacement for the Palladium core.
Okay, so I have the answer Vision, but the actual answer is Jarvis, because Jarvis eventually becomes Vision. Extra credit, what does Jarvis stand for? Anyone? I think it's just a rather very intelligent system or something like that. Yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Google. I got that from Google. Guys, robots were created to do something, right? Robots were created for a thing, right? And so all these robots that we love and watch and see and film and all that, right? Let's take WALL-E, for example. What was WALL-E? So before WALL-E meets Eve and it's a love story and they have the adventure together, what was WALL-E's purpose in life? He was a trash bot, right? Like, WALL-E just ran around or rolled around. He got trash, put it in his little belly, compacted it, which I wish I could do with food sometimes, and just poops out a little block of trash, right? I don't think he poops it out, but you know what I mean. Like, that's what he does, right? Cool, so we understand that robots are for like one purpose, right? They just do one thing. That was WALL-E's thing, right? Robots, if you look at how they are made and created, their identity is found in what they do. WALL-E was a trash bot, right? Any of you guys wish you actually had a robot in real life? Like you wish you had one? A lot more hands than earlier was like, I don't like robots. Now you wish you had one, right? I feel like if we had robots, like for real robots, we'd be like, we're already lazy. Like, yes, we have cell phones. That's kind of like a robot. But I mean like a robot that just actually physically does things for you. Like if I had a robot, it'd be like, hey, robot, can you fix me a sandwich? I'm hungry. And my robot would make me a sandwich, and I'd be happy, right? Hey, robot. And you guys would be like, hey, robot, can you do my homework today? How many of you guys wish you had that robot that would just do your homework, right? Woo! Both hands. Me, Lord, give me a robot for Christmas. And don't act like you guys haven't asked Alexa and Siri to do your homework for you. Yeah. And it was like, do it yourself, right? Guys, I just want you to know, I actually have a robot. Her name is MW, stands for microwave. And she makes, yes, thank you. She makes me some killer food and makes it quick. I'm actually lying because I hate microwave food. I really do. I do not like eating food out of the microwave. But hey, again, like robots, guys, appliances only serve one purpose. They only do one thing. But you know what? I think we as people, you as young men and young women, we're different, right? We're people. We aren't defined by what we do, right? When people introduce themselves, they never describe themselves by what they do, right? No? You and I never feel valuable or invaluable based on what we can or can't do, right? Surprise! No, we like always want people to know what we do, right? Like, hi, I'm a senior in high school and I'm a star athlete, right? Like people want it to be known what they do, right? So, I'm gonna take us back a little bit because the idea of robots is not a new thing. Obviously, we talked about a bunch of robots in the 80s and 2000s and current. But if you look at the book of Exodus, which we'll do in a second here, there's this idea of becoming robot-like with our lives, right? And so we'll read it together. It's in Exodus 1 in the story. It's about the people of God, right? So the people of God, the Israelites in the Old Testament, they were confused in their identity. They confused their identity with what they did, right? They weren't like God's people. They were slaves. So they identified with that. And so in a way, they became like robots. So it reads in verse 14 of the first chapter, it says, they, the Egyptians, made their lives, the Israelites, God's people, their lives bitter with harsh labor, in brick and mortar, and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly, right? And so if we look at the life of the Egyptians as they were in hundreds of years of slavery, they really were nothing more than just brick-making robots. They were slaves, but you'll discover that some of these Israelites, from the moment they can pick up a brick, old enough to work, until the day they died, that's all they did. I mean, you can imagine how difficult that life would be, how boring that life would be, but it'd be the same thing. The only purpose they lived in life was to do that thing. And so most of us know this incredible story that follows after they're delivered from slavery, obviously through Moses, and they go through the sea. He splits the sea wide open to save them. As you read along through that, as you read along through that story, you'll see that the people of Israel, like God's people, they still have the tendency to struggle. They still struggle as they go through that. They still have this tendency to draw back and identify themselves as slaves, right? And as brick-making robots, things that they did in the past. And so if I'm honest, guys, if I'm really honest, I would suspect that we all can relate to some of the same struggle. The same idea that we take something that we're known by, that we identify with, and we always want to latch onto that thing, right? And so I wrote down in my notes, I said that our culture, this isn't on your notes or on the screen, but I said our culture is infatuated with outward appearances, right? And so the question really is, what are some things that we find important? You guys can call some out real quick. What are some things that we find important? Our reputation, a phone, Fortnite, PUBG fans in the house, right? So guys, all the things that we're yelling out, listen up. All the things that we're yelling out have to do, they're external, right? They're outward. We spend so little time focusing on what's inward, our minds and our hearts and our souls, right? And so our culture is like dove into this idea of focusing on the outward appearances, right? And so now we move to this modern robots, like the modern day robots. Not talking about the Wall-E's and the Terminators and all those guys, but more like people, like real life people. And I think all of us, if we're honest, guys, that if we can be deeply insecure and desperate for a place to belong in this world. And I think because of that desire, when we find something that we are good at or that we get noticed for, we often cling to that thing desperately, right? And so I came up with 4 robots that I feel like drives the culture for all of you and for, I think, most people, but specifically for a middle school and high school students, because I once was a middle school and high school student, right? And so you don't raise your hand, because that could be weird. Like if you're like, I'm a nerd, like don't do that. But if you just consider these 4 bots, and I think every single one of us in this room can resonate with one of these types of robots, right? The first bot is the bot, which is the funny guy, right? The funny person. Any class clowns in here? Right? That is literally like, this one's big for me, right? Because I made like, getting kicked out of class was like very common for me, right? I was so funny, and I'm not even trying to brag. I'm just saying, I'm funny to the point where I used to get kicked out of class where the teacher was laughing at my joke while they kicked me out of class. Like, I've had that happen, right? Guys, for me, it was big because from a very early age when I realized I could make people laugh, whether it was family or friends or at school, it felt good. It felt good to be noticed in a good way. So I became a class clown. My function was to be funny. And without being funny and without having that function, it felt like I had no identity. It was almost like I became a robot. Like I was this funny robot. That's all I did, right? Second bot is the baller bot, or the banana bot, right? That's Sports Center, anybody? Sports Center? No? And maybe for you, it's a sport. You're a sport bot. You're good at football, basketball, soccer, tennis, volleyball, whatever the sport is. At school, this is what you're known for. Like, they see you on the school like, oh, yeah, that's the starting point guard on the team. Yeah, boy got game. You know, he's a baller bot or a BBB bot, right? No of our fans got it. Cool, big baller brand. And so for you, this is what you're known for, and you know, your parents are proud of you and your accomplishments. But for me, when I see people who are that kind of bot, I wonder what happens when maybe a really bad injury happens, or you can't even play anymore, like ever again. Like this stuff happens. And my question is, would people still notice or care if you stop playing? Would they know you for who you are in here instead of what you can do as an athlete, right? Without football, like without that sport, or what's basketball, whatever sport is, you'll feel like you have no identity. All right? Sometimes, I have a confession. So sometimes we try to like play the field with bots. Like I was a funny bot, but I kind of wanted to be the baller bot. Like I'm a big guy, but I'm fairly athletic for my size, and I always have been. And so when I was in 11th grade in high school, you guys know when it's like a rainy day and like it's PE, you guys go into the gym. Like you can't play outside. And so when we went into the gym, we were trying to figure out the best way to get in trouble, which is not a good thing. However, this day in particular, we decided that while the PE teachers left to figure out what they were going to do when they came back in for class, it's like before the class started, we're like, bro, let's pull out the bleachers, and we'll just all like start at the bottom and try to race up to the top of the bleachers, and we'll just like close them as we're running up the bleachers. That is the dumbest game you could ever think of playing, right? And so I'm like, yeah, let's play. And I'm like, straight up, I'm just like the fat kid in gym class, like, yeah, let's play, guys. And I'm like, this is my moment, guys. This is my moment to move out of funny bot and turn into the baller bot, you know? And so I felt like we were playing, and it was like in that moment, it's like that Chariots of Fire song started playing, right? And I'm like running up the bleachers. I go to the next one. I'm like in first place. They're collapsing behind me, and I'm like, you're not gonna get me today. And then I go to jump, and my leg gets stuck in the bleacher. I'm not even kidding. I don't know how, you can cut the song. I don't know how, because it's sad. I don't know how I didn't break my ankle, but I'm not even kidding. I wish I could reenact it. I was hanging upside down by one leg, and the PE teachers, the bell rang, PE teachers came in, and they're looking at me like, Cravens! And I was like, hey, can I get some help? I couldn't even, because I was chunky, so I couldn't do sit-ups. So I couldn't get myself up. I'm like reaching for my own ankle. Anyway, I don't even know where that came from, but I just want you guys to remember to stay in your bot lane if you are there. All right, third bot is the brain bot. Brain bot, right? We're all my nerds in the building. Don't tell me. I told you not to tell me. Girl in the back was like, she was so excited to be like, I'm smart. All right, so for you, maybe it's your grades. You're smart, let's be real. You're probably going to finish in the top 10 of your class. You're going to be magna cum laude, summa cum laude, some type of laude. I don't know what they are, but that's who you are. But I think somebody who's incredibly smart, right? There's pressure with that. You feel it from your parents, from your teachers, from your friends, your peers. You're the smart kid. Everyone knows you for it. But it feels like your entire life is devoted to earning amazing grades, right? And without that, like what if you didn't get an A? What if you didn't get the best score? What if you didn't get into the college that you've been dreaming of? The question for you is, like your function is to be smart and get great grades, but without those things, what is your identity? And for the last one, I call it the Baybot, which if you are the Baybot, you are just the most fine, good-looking, most popular person in school. Like you're the person that when you walk down the hallway, people just kind of like talking, they like stop, like, hold up. Yeah, so like you're that person, right? I was not that person. It's cool, because I winning in life anyway. For you as a Baybot, maybe it's the way you look, right? Maybe you're just super popular. From a young age, people have commented on your good looks. This is my son. He's like the greatest looking kid in the world. I'm not even bragging. This is truth. Thank you. They know it. You went from being a cute kid to the popular middle schooler, then to the sought-after high school date. Some of you guys in here got like 4 proms you'll go to. But I think there's a lot there for you guys too as far as struggling with your identity, because for you at times, you wish people would care more about what you think and how you feel. What if you weren't beautiful? It's almost like you're a robot, a very fine and cute robot, but no doubt still a robot. Your function is to be beautiful or popular. Without your body and good looks, what's your identity? And so today, friends, I'm here to tell you that we can be free from this robotic struggle, free from the artificial intellectual chains, free from the strings of the puppeteer and the world and media and peer telling me to be what it wants me to be. You see, in the law of robots, in your notes, we aren't what we do. In Jesus, we're something new. Woo-hoo! Bars. Sorry, yeah. In your notes, so the first thing in your notes, it says, we aren't what we do. We aren't what we do. So today we talk about a new identity, right? A new identity. This is something that all of us struggle with. We're broken people. I'm standing here as a broken person, just trying to live right, serving Jesus, because he's changed my life, right? We were created to be God's children, but because of humanity's rebellion, we are alienated from God and feel restless and oftentimes like we're drifting at sea. We constantly become confused about who we are and what gives us value. Like the Israelites in that story, if you go back and read, we have to be retaught. We have to be reminded of who we actually are. And if you guys go back and read that story, we love when you guys go back and read the stuff that we're talking about. That's why we have the Mount Sinai thing with the 10 Commandments, because they kept forgetting who they were. They were no longer slaves. You're no longer a slave. And so God had to be like, hey, wake up. This is what you are now. You don't have any other gods but me. You take a day to rest, right? God gave them things to be known by that only had to do with him, not by their past or the things that they did in the past as far as slaves and brick making. And this is why God, I think he prioritizes this new identity. And it carries its way all the way from the Exodus all the way later until Paul writes about it all the way throughout the New Testament, right? And so I'll try something. If everybody in the room, I'm talking like adults, high school, middle school, close your eyes. Close your eyes. You can put your head down if you want. So for you, whatever that bot that you feel like you resonate with, I want you to imagine that God is looking right at you, and he's going to tell you, whatever your name is, he's going to say, you aren't a robot. Your value does not come from how funny you are. Your value does not come from how good you are at sports. Your value does not come from how beautiful or popular you are. Your value does not come from how smart you are. Your value comes from who you are in me. You are my beloved child. Look up. Guys and girls, you are God's children. Like I'm a child of God. We are all a child of God, right? And we're loved and cherished sons and daughters. And so again, we have these reminders. And we'll go through a passage in Galatians, which is a biblical reminder that we have too, right? We always have to be reminded. So we'll read this together. Galatians 4:4-7, verse 4 says, 4 is but when? That's not right. And I'll read it to you guys. Galatians 4, verse 4 says, but when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law. Verse 5 says, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. That we might receive adoption to sonship, daughtership, whatever you want to say, a child. Because you are his sons and daughters, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. And in verse 7 it says, so you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has made you also an heir. And maybe you don't understand what that fully means yet, and that's cool, but that's a reason to praise and be excited because God has given us all this for free through his son Jesus. And in your notes, you'll see the bottom line. So the bottom line in your notes, it says, I am defined by adoption in Christ, not by what I can do. You're not defined by those things or those bots that you feel like you resonate with. You're defined by your adoption in Jesus Christ. So write that down. And then right after that, it says, so I'm saying, therefore, stop. Look someone next to you and say, stop. Then look to the other person and say, stop. Guys, stop. We have to stop. Listen up, listen up. We have to stop defining ourselves. Stop defining yourself by what you do. Instead, define yourself as a child of the King. And these words, these stories, these scriptures, they're so powerful. And I think that if we are able to truly breathe them in and take them in and accept them as true in our lives, I think they will utterly transform who we are and how we walk in this life. You're no longer a slave to any of those things, just like the Israelites, but you are a child of God. And so at the end of your notes, these are things to consider this week, which my hope is that I won't see a lot of these notes on the chairs, right? Because you gotta take this with you if you want to follow up on this week. So this week, I want you to ask yourself a couple questions, right? And the first question there you see is there anything in your life you get noticed for that you define or identify, you define your identity by? You don't have to say it right now, but this is for you by yourself. And then the second question is, how does God define your identity? Which we read about that. And if you forget what we read about, bam, it's right there. Number 3, Galatians 4:4-7, and I put in 2 Corinthians 5:16-17, which talks about being a new creation, right? And so, guys, I encourage you, please read those this week. Ask yourself these questions, right? Remind yourself of who you are in God. And you guys have probably heard this next phrase before. It's very common, but again, I love being able to remind you guys of these important truths in our lives. And so it should be up here. It's part of knowing and accepting who you are is found in accepting and knowing whose you are. I'll read it again. Part of knowing and accepting who you are is found in accepting and knowing whose you are. The band can come up. So we have a young adult ministry on Thursday nights. A lot of the same team, we do that. And we've been doing a new song. The song's called Endless Hallelujah. And it's like one of my favorite songs right now in life just because I heard it a few months back and it just changed my life in a way that I needed. It was this reconnection with God that I needed. But more recently, this song has been so much more powerful to me, right? And the first verse of this song, guys, listen up. The first verse says, in the morning when I rise to meet you, in the morning when I lift my eyes, you're the only one I want to cling to. You're the first thought on my mind. And that hit me very hard because it was a reminder. Not only was it a reminder and a call for me to remember to rest more, right? But it was also a call and a reminder for me to hold fast to knowing who I belong to, right? And so they're going to play something in a second. Not yet. They're going to play something in a second. And this idea of acknowledging the Father with every breath that I have, especially in the very first moments of the day, has gotten so real to me because of this recording. So if you guys listen up, just... Some of you guys are like, I have no idea what that is. But I'll explain. So for a while now, for the past few months, I'll wake up at like 5 a.m. and it's not because I want to wake up at 5 a.m., right? But that sound is my 16-month-old son. And listen. It's my 16-month-old son, and what he's saying, like he literally wakes up, and the first thing he does is he turns to me, and he says, "Papa, Papa," and he says it quietly because it's a tender moment, I feel like, and when I started realizing what he was doing, I tried recording it because it just meant so much to me, obviously as a father, but it also meant so much to me as a child of the Father. And so I encourage you guys as we go into this time of next steps and we sing another song, I don't want you guys to leave this weekend and this moment in this continuation of neglecting your relationship with God. And maybe some of you guys needed to hear that, or some of you guys need to remember that when you wake up, it's not text your friend, this idea of friends. Maybe it's not get up and the first thing you do is scroll through Instagram. We talked about that last week. Instead, give those first few moments to God. Guys, this is a struggle for me too. I'm not telling you I've got it figured out and I'm perfect with it, but I'm learning as well. And so learn with me, right? And so the last thing for you guys, I just want you to remember that you aren't what you do or how you look. You are a treasured son. You're a cherished daughter. This is your identity. Let's pray together. God, we thank you just for who you are. We thank you for, God, we thank you that in this life, that no matter how many boxes that the world tries to place us in, whether it's an athlete or for our good looks or for our amusement, God, or how smart we are, whatever the box is that the world tries to place us in, God, I pray that every single one of us, whether middle school, high school, or adult in this room, God, I pray that we would see a box and that the only box that we would fit in was one that says, child of God. So, Father, I thank you for your love. I thank you for the story, the redemption story that you are playing out in every single one of our lives. God, I thank you that we don't have to be victims to being a robot and falling victim to being defined by a single thing other than being a child of the King. And so we thank you so much for who you are. God, we love you. It's in your name that we all pray. Amen.